And now we're live. Hey, we're live. So there is only a few of us today. That doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of news going on. So I'm gonna start. I have a bunch of them. First, I created. Damn it! We don't have a lot of. Sorry again. I'm trying to test this live feature and I forgot, and I was listening to me in the background. That's it. So there are a bunch of new modules in the decoupled ecosphere or ecosystem. One of them is called consumers. I talked about this, that I was going to write it, and now I did. This is basically a module that will allow to attach configuration per consumer. So the idea is that we already had this for simple auth. This is where you configured how a consumer accessed the auth tokens. But this was abstracted in a way that it can be reused for other stuff. So that's the first module. The second module that I wrote is called Consumer Image Styles, which basically what it will do is it will allow consumers to go to their page and configure, hey, Mr. Server, I know that you know nothing about me, so these are the image styles that you are supposed to provide me. So whenever you serialize an image using JSON API, it will provide the selected image styles. This is called consumer underscores image underscore styles. And finally, I also rewrote sub-requests, and now it's more flexible, and I think that more useful, and it can do things like creating more than one sub-response per sub-request. So if you do something like, give me all the, make us a request for, I don't know, slash vocabulary, so you get all the for slash tags, so you get all the tags in the system, and then you can do multiple requests, like for each tag in the system, which you don't know how many, then make a subsequent request and everything in a single transaction, which saves a lot of HTTP bandwidth. So these are the three modules that I worked in since my last update. And I also fixed a long-standing issue in JSON API extras, which is that it was replacing the service that kind of manages all the resources available and makes it depending on configuration, because in JSON API extras, you can disable resources. So now it will use decoration, and with the decoration, it will kind of, be more friendly to use, or to override for other things like the OpenAPI module. So I tried this. It will make JSON API extras to depend on JSON API 1.3 and forward, which has also been expressed. But after doing that, it was pretty simple to fix the issue where too many resources were listed incorrectly under OpenAPI. So that's pretty much my update. Sorry for the long list of things. Any questions or comments or? Not sure if anyone can hear Ted.
No, I think Ted is muted.
Okay, or it was the best trolling ever.
No, we can't hear you, Ted.
Can see you too. I mean, maybe someone can try to read lips. Yeah.
Ted, can you write it in the comments so we can at least?
Or try rejoining.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm really excited about the consumer image styles and the sample requests, I think. But especially for consumer image styles, because I think that's a practical problem that will be solved. I don't think that we are, or that we should be recommending using that for in production, but it's a Drupal, it's a solution that stays within Drupal without external services. That's where I like that we can at least propose a solution. What do you think?
At least I think it's like good enough, and I think for most use cases it's actually what is needed. Because much like I think there are consumers much I think that we have arbitrary amount of consumers use cases cool. I think it's not necessarily like it's so hard, this problem space, that like focusing more on the many instead of infinite, or like how you call that, is actually good. And like in the many use case, I think image styles work out well.
Yeah, I like that the pattern of forcing the X to go through the consumer's module, because it kind of makes everything explicit. Like, hey, you're declaring something for a particular consumer. Like, it kind of sets the right mindset in not forgetting that the couple side is one-to-many by default. And one-to-one is just a particular one-to-many. Ted, do you want to try now?
Ted, if you're talking, we can't still hear you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot hear your thoughts. Okay, awesome. If you have any comments and you want to drop them, like you said, don't matter, I will listen. I can read them out loud. I'll make sure to pop up my comment here. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did. Is there anyone that wants to take a turn to update on what you've been doing, or questions that you may have for the rest of the team, etc.?
I can give a small update regarding config entity support. Amatescu made a review last week and said that we should allow entity types to declare whether they are validatable or not. So like if you as a config entity, for example, if you implemented like all the various validations, you should be able to specify that. And then like as part of that, we automatically expose, or we don't expose, those config entities. And we agreed on making this possible after some disagreement. So that's maybe something JSON API could also use to identify these are the entity types you can actually expose, and these are the ones we can't. But it is interesting that we are doing that, given that Ted is working on an issue which allows to specify which properties of a type data, complex data, you should be able to expose. And so here it's like this thing Ted is working on is really talking about exposables, like exposing, while like the config entity issue like talks about, is it validatable? And it feels like it's like maybe we should assume everything is validatable, and like we should have the way to say this is exposable or not. Or yeah, it feels like it's weird that there are now two concepts coming up. I don't know whether anyone has any thoughts about that.
Is the concept of is validatable related to backwards compatibility for things that are not in Drupal core? So we don't break them when this comes into core? Or is it something else related?
Well, we haven't thought about backward compatibility yet.
Okay. Cool. It seems like
yeah.
If we kind of have modules like JSON API that assumes that everything, as you said, is exposable and therefore validatable, things that don't implement those optional, what I understand that are optional interfaces, are kind of in a weird state at that moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, actually, like content entities are all validatable right now, but maybe they won't because, for example, content moderation state entities like really shouldn't be exposed, from my point of view, to the outside because it's just an internal value to track something.
Right. Yeah, I'm all in to expose a programmatic interface. Trying to avoid not to use API in a confusing way. A programmatic interface inside of type data to deduce the things that we are kind of shoehorning through JSON API extras. So have core be a little bit more, have more metadata or be more descriptive about what we can do. So hopefully that work can land us there. For the validatable, oh yes, we can.
Sorry, I had to quit Chrome altogether. So Daniel, you're talking about the validation interface issue?
Exactly.
So, and the way people would opt in, I tried to see if there were any updates on that issue. So the config entities would opt in just by implementing that interface, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, but like, right, but then like it's a totally different concept to exposable. What you are working on, right? I mean.
Yeah, so the exposable, yeah, it's different because exposables, it's like on the property level.
Right.
So, and as far as the backwards compatibility, right now there are no config entities that are exposed over REST. So, and that shouldn't be a concern, right? For core, at least.
Well, yeah, right, for core, but like for like JSON API or GraphQL, they both expose them right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so for JSON API, you couldn't really just stop exposing them before like 2.0 or whatever, because that would break people's sites.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, there is a note that says that there is this issue with validation of config entities, and you shouldn't rely on it.
Okay.
So we decided that it wasn't wise to block stability based on that issue because we didn't know how long it would be, right? And it was a use case that could be mitigated by authentication, like, hey, don't give this to anyone that doesn't know what's doing with it, because it can break your site because they are not validated. However, we can go to 2.0, like that. I mean, we could go tomorrow. My hand's steady with that. I embrace semantic versioning. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be a problem for JSON API. I just want to have the most proper solution in there. And it seems that you're working on type data. Is it possible to work on this exposables concept at the entity type definition level as well?
We didn't want, well, you mean to say an entity is exposed to the REST system?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or at least to have the metadata too.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. We had thought about doing the exposable like that entities themselves would say which properties, and like an annotation, I think, on the entity would say no, it was on the field. But then we decided it was, I can't remember why we decided it was better on the type data level, which I'm really not recalling why. So the exposable on the entity level would be, it's like this one should be exposed via either REST or JSON API or whatever. Was that your thought?
Yeah, so if we could use the same exact concept, like this field can be written to, or it can be read, whatever, or it's just not there. The same concept would apply to entities, right? This entity can be written to or read, or none of those.
Yeah, so right now, core, it's just sort of blatantly saying only content entities can. Config entities, if we went down this path without sort of that concept, it would just be per config entity if they supported this configuration or this validation, I'm assuming. I mean, for me, validation seems like the thing that would make the most sense to say this is exposable or not.
Right. Yeah, but you could have a pass-through validator, right? Like we could make all of the entity configuration entities be validated, even if it's passed through.
Mm-hmm.
Exposing it seems like unnecessarily coupling the two concepts.
Yeah.
The validating and exposing it.
Because if you think about it, like technically every config entity should be validatable at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no reason that you can't have a validatable config entity, I suppose, because schema is part of validation and we already do that.
But then why would we want to not expose? I mean, why would we want to have a general concept to not expose something then?
Because things are maybe internal, like content moderation is maybe internal, the content moderation state entity.
Yeah, but then you can't, I mean, so then you're saying like only core can really create a real admin interface. Like a full admin interface could only be made by core itself, right? If we're saying in the future, we'd like to be able to make admin interfaces.
What?
Like just over API calls, if we have stuff that are truly only internal, then only core can do it.
That's a good gotcha. Yeah.
Well, at least the content moderation state example, like you don't actually need to deal with that because it's all internal. Like if you change the moderation state of an entity, like whether or of a node, whether it's published or not or something, it's all happening in the background. And you want to not expose them because it's like there is a lot of logic behind creating them, but it's just hidden for you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would make sense then to say like, I mean, maybe we'd only, I mean, is this the only one that we'd really so far in core need to introduce that concept for?
I mean, the thing is like we also want to introduce it by default for config entities right now until, I mean, they are all validatable, like conceptually, but we haven't yet defined all the validations or constraints for those, right? So we could say they are not exposable right now, but in the future they will be.
Yeah, but even if workspace moderation states were validatable, we still don't want to expose them.
Yeah, right. True.
Yeah.
I think that the talk about JSON API extras has proven that people are okay with exposing most of the stuff, but maybe a simple opt-in mechanism if we can provide it. And it seems that we are like really close to be able to do it. It's something that people think it's a good idea, like to be able to remove clutter and improve a developer experience. But yeah, good stuff. Do you have anything else, Daniel?
I've been working on figuring out whether the current work Damien Lee is doing on being able to upload files, whether this is exposable as a module, because this won't land in 8.4. So yeah, I've been making some success there. I'm not sure whether it's actually something useful, but it doesn't feel like unuseful, given that people are able to use it already instead of in April. I don't know, Ted, do you have an opinion about that?
I mean, I feel like it sounds like a good idea. I guess how would people upgrade? What would I get? Would they have to just change the path, or would you be taking over a path that doesn't exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought about like using the same path and the same plugin ID.
Yeah.
So you would just like swap, and then like somehow I would probably detect in the module which Drupal version you're running or something.
Yeah. So right now the plugin ID exists. It's just the method's not supported, right? Or is that wrong?
I'm sorry.
Like right now you can read a file, you just can't.
Right, but I think there is a dedicated plugin ID for this file upload resource.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, that would make sense. Or you could check the resource, and if it exists, don't make your own.
Yeah, there's probably some way. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say go for simplicity if you're looking for a bite on this, and just assume that the thing is not there, and if people when they are upgrading need to make a choice, then it's fine too. I mean, it's just a workaround in the interim. You're providing a feature that is not there, and let's start in there. Let's start with that mindset, and if we want to get fancy in the way that will support you forever, then so be it. But I would like to see that feature. And if the backwards compatibility stuff kind of stops you, it would be sad, because I think it is useful, or rather, it is not unuseful.
It sounds useful. I mean, you could do something just as simple as checking the Drupal version and just give them a warning to say, hey, we don't actually need this module anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something.
Yeah, and assume that some client changes may need to be required, because the patches may change direction a little bit from what it's now to what it actually gets committed, and just
yeah,
so be it.
Yeah, I hope. I don't know. Like, I mean, I reviewed this issue last week, and it seemed to be on a really good path and like basically done. I'm not sure what you feel about it, Ted. How you feel about it?
Yeah, last time I looked at it, it looked pretty good. I can't actually remember when that was, but I feel like it was last week sometime.
So right now, the current workaround is to use JSON API _file, which will allow you to upload files by using the file entity module. And that works. I used it recently, and it's a different approach. Like, it would be more disruptive to upgrade from contrib to core. And I think that what Daniel is proposing makes a lot of sense, to supersede JSON API file. So yeah, that's awesome. I think we're going to go a little bit over time, but I'm fine with that. So Daniel, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm cool. Sadly, we lost the other person who joined earlier, who was never there before.
Yeah, that's too bad.
But yeah,
can anyone ping Bob on?
sure. Ching Yang, yes.
I'm here.
Do you have something to say? Why you worked on an issue, or rather, your colleague?
Well, we have a big site using JSON API and a few other things. Actually, I have one question. There's one issue I worked on. It was trying to fix the decimal item normalization. So since Ted is working on the typed data, I was wondering if Ted can take a review the patch.
Yeah, sure. Just put it in the chat.
Sure. Thanks.
Is it a null versus 0 when it's empty issue?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know that there was a little bit of a debate there. For what it's worth, I agree with your approach.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I've not seen this yet, but I'll take a look at it.
Great. Thank you.
I will relate this into damn it. Oh, I almost lost you by clicking a link. That was so close. I'm pasting this into the decoupled Slack, Ted, in case you're not getting the this group chat thingy. Awesome. Ted, Carlos, do you have anything for the group and the community? Because remember, we are online.
Yeah, I had one thing I was wondering is, are you guys just for Contenta, are you using just like your packages numbers to figure out how many people are using it, or do you have another way to sort of get an idea of how many people you think are installing Contenta?
That is a great question. I don't think we know. Carlos may have a better insight to that.
Yeah, theoretically, we could use Drupal.org if we would use Drupal.org.
Well, also, I was wondering if there's some module that you're using. So I'm looking at the Open API usage statistics, and they're going up a lot. It's like at 1,300 now. And I don't know that people are finding it besides Contenta and Reservoir. So, I mean, I'm assuming that it's going up because of Contenta and Reservoir, either that people are finding it because of those distributions, or maybe that's just a sort of indicator of how many people are using the distributions.
Yeah, we have the recipes magazine in Drupal.org, right, Daniel? But we're not pushing to it, and therefore not using Composer.
Yeah. I think actually Recipe Magazine is now is in the Contenta repository because we forked it. We forked our own module.
That's true.
Yeah, but yeah, like at least how's it called, packagist. So like the npm of what's it called, PHP
Composer.
Composer. They report like above 1,000 installs of content. So I would assume at least part of it is for OpenAPI. It always feels like modules, like the numbers of like installations, like really depend on like the stability level in quotes. So if you increase your stability level to beta, suddenly like 1,000 people try it out, even if it didn't change anything.
Yeah, well, that's true, but there is a commitment. Sorry, Carlos, go on.
So yeah, like we don't have any current way of identifying real users. At least in Contenta, we can use Composer, but still that data can be, the test, when you run the test, they can alter, the percentage and everything, because they're pulling that. So like currently there's no way of us knowing how many real users are actually using Contenta. So,
that is a great question, though, Ted. Maybe we could create an empty Drupal.org module. I'm leaning towards no, because I mean, we don't need that in Drupal.org, but that would be used as a tracker somehow. Statistics.
Idea.
I mean, but obviously other PHP projects don't need something like Drupal.org to tell them. I mean, I guess you just have a general idea, right? You don't. I mean, we have something specific that we're used to in the Drupal world, but that's maybe not the default. So I don't know. I don't know if we particularly need that.
I think we have it too good. We are used to the good stuff of having the update module kind of to this stuff for us. And outside of Drupal, I know that the Node community, they rely on daily and weekly downloads of a package to evaluate it, and that is not exactly what we want, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, cool. Yeah, maybe worth coordinating and getting the same solution. What do you think, Ted?
Yeah, I mean, one thing sorry, go ahead, Carlos.
No, I like the idea. Sorry for interrupting there, Ted. We both talk at the same time. But I like the idea of having something that some sort of way that we can actually measure and have metrics.
The other thing I was sort of thinking of, like long, sort of general for the API initiatives, like how do we? I feel like how do we get more people to this call and in general working on issues, or maybe enough people are. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what other people think about that. If that's like a need, or if I don't know.
Marketing.
Yeah.
It's rough. I mean, I think we are at the top that we can do. Like, Dries is talking about this in every keynote, right? He's putting a big stress. It's clear, or I mean, it's clear to the people in this room, because that's self-selection, that this has the potential to be the future of Drupal somehow. However, people just don't have either the time to join or the need for it yet. And probably no amount of marketing is going to fix that. I'd say, though, that there are people that I know that are taking part in issues that are not in the call, that are taking part in the broader scene of the decoupled Drupal, like building consumers for Contenta, or doing other related tasks that are not part of the call. But yeah, I would say that writing about it is the best way to attract people. And just saying it out loud, like saying, we need hands on this and that, instead of saying we need hands in general, just point to issues, which I will be happy to kind of coordinate if you want me to, Ted.
Yeah, I'll think about it after. I'll try to after Vienna and see what the state, and try to help with promotion.
Something that I think that is the most important goal for promotion at the moment is GraphQL. GraphQL is there. I'm not sure I want to say it's there because they haven't tagged unstable release, but Fubi tells me that it's there. So we should tell the world, because you see at the statistics, at the user statistics, and it's not reflecting that. And GraphQL is a pretty cool module. I was thinking that maybe we could have some sort of API initiative webinars, community webinars, or something where the creators of the different modules could just go and do and show for, I don't know, an hour, half an hour.
That's
Sorry.
actually pretty good. That's actually a pretty good idea. Something that I noticed, I don't know if you guys have seen that, like once a month, the big JavaScript guys that are backing up, the creator of the JavaScript framework, like Angular or Vue or React, the big guys. And there, they once a month get together and they explain what's on the rolling release and what's gonna come out next, and they explain a few things, and it's pretty cool. If you guys, I can share with you guys, and maybe we can adopt something like that where API and Drupal, and
I kind of like the idea. So let's treat this as brainstorming, coordinate and talk about it a little bit some more. And if we want that, we will start calling for papers or for people that want to present or wherever. However, I feel strongly GraphQL should be first, because it's a lot of work. It's too useful for it to be unnoticed. So.
Yeah, I just had an idea why maybe the numbers are so low. It's because you can't use GraphQL without Composer, because they actually use an external library. And I could imagine that Drupal.org doesn't track those. And unlike JSON API, which doesn't have a dependency on an external library. But that's just an idea.
Yeah, that could be. However, the simple auth module, which you cannot use without an external library or Composer, has more reported uses than that. So yeah, maybe it's something else that we're missing. In any case, I don't think it's going to hurt anyone to have Sebastian walk us through the basic use of GraphQL, and maybe Philip do a combo thing. Anyways,
yeah.
Cool. Is that it, Ted? To share anything else?
So before we leave, Ted, I've been using the GraphQL reservoir, that you have been doing, and it's pretty cool so far. The last 2 weeks, I've been playing, at least half an hour, 40, no more than half an hour a day, and I'm gonna see if I can spin up a documentation by next week. Something that may help, and a few things that I found, and see how I can help on that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Awesome. I just want to say I forgot something to add to my list. I also released Simple Auth. Now that I have it open,
Nice.
I released Simple Auth 3.x. Which is using the consumers module. So the idea is that it was abstracted out from Simple Auth, and now consumer image styles and Simple Auth both use this consumers module. So yeah, branch 3 is the way to go if you're starting from fresh. If you try to upgrade, you probably want to stay in 2.x.
So I had another question. Like, currently, I see that we have one module for OAuth 1 and another module for OAuth 2, right?
Yes, the module for the version 1 of the auth protocol is called auth, and it's a different module, different maintainer, and different release cycles.
Okay, it's like I said, it's really weird. Like, seeing that coming from seeing other frameworks and other technologies, like they have one package that handles both, and like so we are seeing two modules implementing two, like instead of consolidating into one module, like both OAuth 1 and OAuth 2, like having two different modules. And
yeah, I agree. Well, I guess that the path of least resistance would be to create a wrapper module that depends on both and negotiate. Oh, I see that you're using auth 1. Use this way. You're using auth 2. Use this other way. However, I'm fine with it being two separate modules because it's hardly ever useful to have both auth1 and auth2 in the same side. So you're gonna have to choose which protocol you use anyways, and if you use one, you use one module. But I think it can be confusing. Maybe some work on documentation can be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. But
yeah, I just noticed that simple OAuth does link back to the OAuth module for 1.0, but the OAuth module doesn't link to simple OAuth for 1.0.
Yeah, I remember we had the same discussion a week ago. And I think someone wanted to reach out to Wumpy to like maybe.
Yeah, I think that Wim said that he would write him an email. Not sure where that landed. I was with Wumpy this whole past week and didn't remember. So I cannot blame Wim or anyone. I will try to remember though and talk to Wumpy to ask to drop a link. Hey, you're using auth2, then use this other module because this is for auth1.
Yeah, maybe something along the lines like, yeah, OAuth1 is like less secure than OAuth2 unless you use a toilet paper around it. Or something. It's just random.
In case you're wondering, that's an inside joke. It is really funny though. I would agree with that. Cool, awesome. I cannot top that, so I'm gonna say this is the highlight. We say goodbye till next week.
All right, thanks everybody.
take care now. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.